Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Bible in a Year 2021. We are on day 224, and we are reading through Jeremiah 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22 today. So let's see how quickly we can get through this. So a lot of people understand this very famous passage dealing with the potter and the clay. And it is really the basis of a lot of my discussions that I have with people about, us trying to make up our own rules. So in Jeremiah 18, 6-8, house of Israel, can't I deal with you like this potter, declares the Lord? Like clay in the potter's hands, so are you in mine, house of Israel. At any time I may announce that I will dig up, pull down, and destroy a nation or a kingdom. But if that nation I warned turns from its evil, then I'll relent and not carry out the harm I intended for it. Nineveh being an example of that, if you need an example. And then the opposite is also true in verse 9-10. At the same time, I may announce that I will build and plant a nation or kingdom. But if that nation displeases and disobeys me, then I'll relent and not carry out the good I intended for it. So it's all about the relationship. You got to remember, it's all about the relationship. And verse 11-12, now say to the people of Judah and those living in Jerusalem, this is what the Lord says. I am a potter preparing a disaster for you. I'm working out a plan against you. So each one of you turn from your evil ways, reform your ways and your actions. But they said, what's the use? We will follow our own plans and act according to our own willful evil desires. But of course, when that thing that the potter is working on isn't working out, they just smash down the clay and start all over again. And that's what the image that the Lord is trying to plant with these people, and it's something we have to keep in mind as well. There has to be a recognition of his supremacy, of his right as the creator, to say what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad. It shouldn't be according to our opinion, but according to what he has said. In verse 18, we're seeing again this opposition to Jeremiah. Then they said, come, let's unite against Jeremiah, for the priest's instructions won't fail, nor will the sage's counsel, nor the prophet's word. Come, let's silence him and pay no attention to his words. So, we can kind of understand that if this is what they were raised with, if this is what they were used to, and then Jeremiah shows up and speaks the truth and gives them a different measuring rod, that they would want to reject what they're not familiar with, instead of seeking the truth for themselves. And in verse 23, we see no longer petitioning, but you, Lord, you know all their sinister plots to kill me. Don't overlook their wrongdoing. Don't cleanse their sin from before you. May they stumble before you. When you become angry, do something about them. So much for the petitions of Jeremiah. And we had the object lesson of the potter, and now we have another one of the clay jar being smashed. The understanding that when a clay jar is smashed, it's beyond repair. So verse 10 and 11, then you should shatter the clay jar in the sight of the people who are with you, and you should say to them, this is what the Lord of heavenly forces says. Just as one smashes the potter's piece beyond repair, so I will smash this people and this city, and they will bury the dead in Topheth until there's no room left. These are very clear and precise and pretty dire. In Jeremiah 19, verses 14-15, this is not an easy calling for Jeremiah. When Jeremiah returned from Topheth, where the Lord had sent him to prophesy, he stood in the court of the Lord's temple and said to all the people, the Lord of heavenly forces, the God of Israel, proclaims, I am about to bring upon this city and its surrounding towns every disaster that I have pronounced against them because they have been stubborn and wouldn't obey my words. That's what he's doing right there in the courts. Yeah. So then it shouldn't surprise us that when we turn the page and we look at chapter 20, what do we find in the first couple of verses? When the priest Pashur, Immer's son, the officer in charge of the Lord's temple, heard Jeremiah prophesying these words, he beat the prophet and detained him in confinement at the upper Benjamin gate in the Lord's temple. So that is, that's Jeremiah's life. So then Jeremiah gives him a personal prophecy. And you, Pashur, and all those in your household will go into captivity. You will be deported to Babylon, where you will die. There you will be buried with all your friends to whom you prophesied falsely. Verse 9. We see here, and it's great that these personal things are recorded so that we can see there are days when you want to walk away, days where you want to quit, just like Elijah, and we find Jeremiah here confessing, I thought I'll forget him, meaning Yahweh. I'll no longer speak in his name. But there's an intense fire in my heart, trapped in my bones. I'm drained, trying to contain it. I'm unable to do it. And then in verse 11 of chapter 20, we have here Jeremiah remembering, but the Lord is with me. Okay, so he's been discouraged, but now he reminds himself, but the Lord is with me like a strong defender. Therefore, my oppressors will stumble and not prevail. They will be disgraced by their own failures. Their dishonor will never be forgotten. Jeremiah cared, though. He cared. This was his nation. These were his people. He loved them dearly. They were important to him. That's why he spent so much time petitioning for them. He's not at a distance. These are his neighbors. And so we read these words in verse 18. Why was I ever born when all I see is suffering and misery? My days are filled with shame. Because he sees the effect of his words on the people, and this is hard. In chapter 21, verses 1 to 2, this would be really laughable if this wasn't so sad. Jeremiah received the Lord's word when King Zedekiah sent Pashur, Malchiah's son, and the priest Zephaniah, Maas's son, to him with an appeal. Speak to the Lord on our behalf, because Babylon's king, Nebuchadnezzar, is attacking us. Perhaps the Lord will perform one of his mighty deeds and force him to withdraw from us. It's like they weren't paying attention. It's like they didn't hear anything that Jeremiah had to say. It's like they were caught by surprise. And it's crazy because this was all detailed for them. And they were told that it's better for them to surrender and go out, surrender to Nebuchadnezzar, than to stay and fight and wait until they breach the wall, because in one way they will live, in the other way they will die. So then we find the response to the king, asking for inquiry. In verse 4 to 6, the Lord, the God of Israel, says, I'm going to turn your own weapons against you. Yes, the weapons you are using to fight the king of Babylon and the Babylonians who have surrounded you. I will round them up in the center of the city. Then I myself will fight against you with an outstretched hand and strong arm and fierce anger and rage. I will strike down those within the city, both people and animals, and they will die of a terrible plague. So, yeah, instead of finding relief, they just found more things piled up. And this would be hard to hear. Verses 8 to 9. This would be really hard for them to hear. This is what you should tell this people. The Lord says, I'm setting before you the way of life and the way of death. Whoever stays in the city will die by the sword, famine, and disease. But whoever leaves the city and surrenders to the Babylonians will live. Yes, their lives will be spared. This is opposite to their history, opposite because the Lord has always rescued them. He has always blessed them. He has always protected them. And now he's telling them to surrender. I mean, it's never happened before. In verses 3-5, here's a proclamation to the king himself. The Lord proclaims, do what is just and right. Rescue the oppressed from the power of the oppressor. Don't exploit or mistreat the refugee, the orphan, and the widow. Don't spill the blood of the innocent in this place. If you obey this command, then through the gates of this palace will come kings who will occupy the throne of David, riding on chariots and horses, along with their entourage and subjects. But if you ignore these words, I swear by myself, declares the Lord, that this palace will become a ruin. And of course, they don't listen, and it becomes a ruin. Then in verse 11 and 12, there's a removing of all doubt about his plan. This is what the Lord says about Shallum, son of Judah's king Josiah, who succeeded his father Josiah as king, but who is now gone from this place. He will never return. He will die where he's been exiled and never see this land again. So if that's who they were hoping for, that hope is gone. And here's something that's really important for us to take notice. We need to take note of this. Anybody who desires to be a leader, Jesus said, to be a leader is not to lord it over them as the Gentiles do. A leader is a servant. And look what we find here, verses 15-16. This is so important. Is this what makes you a king? Having more cedar than anyone else? Didn't your father eat and drink? Referring to Josiah here. Didn't your father eat and drink and still do what was just and right? Then it went well for him. He defended the rights of the poor and needy. Then it went well. Isn't that what it means to know me? Declares the Lord. What does it mean to know him? To understand the importance of the poor and needy, to understand the relationship we're supposed to have with them. Yeah. So I'm just going to leave that with you because that's my soapbox. And I pray that you guys have an excellent day. Thank you for joining with me today. I'm sorry for any of that background noise that you may hear, but it's a busy household today. And I pray that you have an excellent day, and we'll catch up with each other tomorrow. God bless.